Welcome to Wisdom Life, your nightly retreat into tranquil historical tales. Tonight, we step gently into the past, not to witness grand events, not to follow kings or inventors or great minds, but to walk beside the quiet ones. The ones who lived ordinary lives in an extraordinary time. We drift into Victorian London, not in the height of empire or industry, but in the soft, unremarkable hours between waking and sleeping, between labor and rest. A city wrapped in fog, humming with gaslight, where life moved at the pace of footsteps on wet cobblestones, of kettles boiling on iron stoves, of hands mending cloth by candlelight. This is not a story about surviving in the way of adventure or escape. It is about enduring, softly, in the rhythm of small routines, the way you might endure a long day, a heavy thought, a night of restlessness. It is about learning how to breathe through the cold, how to find warmth in a cup of tea, how to carry on when all you want is to sit still and be unseen. And if that sounds familiar to you, if you, too, know what it means to move slowly through your day, to seek comfort in quiet things, then you are already part of this story. So let us begin, not with a rush, but with a breath. Let your shoulders drop. Let your thoughts soften. If you'd like, you can leave a gentle note in the comments, just your name, or your city, or the time it is where you are right now. Nothing more. It's a small way to feel connected, even as we drift apart into sleep. And if this feels kind, if this voice feels like a companion in the dark, you're welcome to stay. To like, to subscribe, not because you must, but because you'd like to return here again. Now, let the light around you grow dim. Let your eyes close, if they wish to. There's no need to focus. No need to remember. Just listen. We begin on a quiet street in Southwark. The year is 1883. It is just past 6 in the morning. And someone is lighting the stove. Part 1, The First Light, Morning Rituals in a Small Tenement Flat. The room is narrow and still, wrapped in the quiet hush that comes just before dawn. The air is cool, carrying the faint scent of old wool and damp brick, a smell that has settled into the walls over many winters. A single window, fogged at the edges, looks out onto a sliver of sky slowly turning from black to deep gray. Inside, the darkness is soft, not sharp, the kind that allows shapes to emerge slowly, like memories returning. A small iron bed stands against the wall, its frame slightly twisted with age, the thin mattress covered by a patchwork quilt, faded from years of washing. Beneath it, a pair of worn leather boots rests side by side, one tipped slightly forward as if still holding the impression of a foot. A woolen shawl is draped over the back of a wooden chair, its fibers worn thin in places, but still warm. This is not a grand room. It holds no treasures. But it is a place of rest, of return, of small order in a world that often feels unkind. Eleanor stirs beneath the covers, not because she wishes to rise, but because the cold has settled into her bones. She opens her eyes slowly, blinking into the dimness, listening. The house is silent, no footsteps above, no coughing from the next room, no creak of the stairs. It is one of those rare mornings when the building holds its breath, when even the pipes are still. She lies there for a long moment, feeling the weight of the blanket, the stiffness in her shoulders, the quiet rhythm of her breath. There is no rush. No bell to answer. No voice calling her name. Just this, the slow return to the day. She pulls the quilt higher, tucks it beneath her chin, and for a few more breaths, she lingers in the space between sleep and waking, where thoughts are soft and unformed, where the world feels distant and gentle. Then, with a quiet sigh, she sits up. The air is colder now, and she reaches for the stockings folded neatly at the foot of the bed. One by one, she pulls them on, rolling the thick wool up over her calves, adjusting the seams with careful fingers. Her hands are familiar with this ritual, the slight resistance of the fabric, the way it warms quickly against the skin. Next, the dress, a simple thing, dark gray, buttoned down the front, sleeves slightly frayed at the cuffs. She buttons it slowly, one button at a time, not because she must, but because the motion calms her. The corset stays loose today. There is no need for tightness when no one is watching. She ties the apron around her waist, knots it gently at the back, and runs a brush through her hair, pulling it into a low braid that rests against her neck. Now, the stove. It stands in the corner, a small iron box with a rusted door and a single knob for adjusting the draft. She opens it carefully, revealing the remains of last night's fire, gray ash, a few blackened coals. She clears them into a metal tray, the sound soft and gritty, then begins to rebuild the fire. First, crumpled newspaper, torn into strips. Then kindling, small sticks saved from broken crates, dry and splintered. A few lumps of coal on top, arranged just so. She kneels beside it, a match in hand, and strikes it against the box. The flame flickers, catches the paper, and begins to climb. She leans forward, blowing gently, steadily, not too hard, not too fast, just enough to feed the spark. The fire responds, crackling softly as the wood catches, the coal beginning to glow at the edges. She closes the stove door, adjusts the knob, and sits back on her heels, watching the light grow. The warmth spreads slowly, like a hand opening. It touches her face, her hands, the front of her dress. She holds her palms toward the stove, feeling the heat seep into her skin, into the small cracks of dryness near her knuckles. From a shelf, she takes the dented kettle, fills it from a pitcher of water, and places it on top of the stove. It sits there, quiet for now, waiting. She arranges a few things on the small table, a chipped porcelain cup, a tin of tea, a spoon, a small piece of brown sugar wrapped in paper. Everything in its place. Nothing rushed. Outside, the city begins to stir. A milk cart creaks past on the cobbles, the horse's hooves tapping a slow rhythm. A window opens somewhere above, a bucket is emptied, a voice calls out something indistinct. A dog barks once, then falls silent. The gas lamps along the street still burn, their yellow light soft in the morning fog, but the sky is lightening, the stars long gone. Eleanor pours a small amount of hot water into the cup to warm it, then empties it into the sink. She adds a spoonful of tea, waits for the kettle to sing. When it does, a soft whistling that rises and falls, she lifts it carefully and pours the water over the leaves. The steam rises, curling toward the ceiling, carrying the faint, earthy scent of black tea. She stirs in the sugar, watches the liquid darken. She carries the cup to the window, stands there for a long moment, looking out. The street is still quiet, but the world is waking. A woman in a shawl walks past, carrying a loaf of bread wrapped in cloth. A boy sweeps the steps of a shop, the broom making soft swishing sounds. A cat slinks along a wall, close to the bricks, its tail low. The fog hangs in the air, thinning now, revealing the outlines of buildings, the curve of the road, the iron railings coated with dew. Eleanor sips her tea, feeling the warmth move through her, from her throat to her chest to her hands. It is not a grand thing. No one will write of this morning. But it is hers. And for now, that is enough. She stands by the window a little longer, watching the slow unfurling of the day. The steam from her cup rises and fades, just as the fog outside lifts in thin curls from the cobblestones. A light rain begins, not heavy, just a soft mist that settles on the windowpane and blurs the edges of the world. She does not mind it. There is comfort. And the sound of small drops tapping the glass, and the way the city seems to hush beneath the veil of water. She finishes her tea slowly, each sip warm and familiar, like a quiet conversation with someone she has known for years. When the cup is empty, she rinses it gently in the basin, places it upside down on a cloth to dry. The kettle still holds warmth, so she refills her cup with the remaining water, not for tea this time, just for the heat of it between her hands. Now, she begins to prepare for the day. From a small drawer, she takes a bar of soap, pale and smooth, worn down to a thin rectangle, and places it beside the basin. She fills the bowl with water from the pitcher, testing the temperature with her wrist. It is cool, but not cold. She washes her face slowly, the cloth soft against her skin, the water carrying away the last traces of sleep. She dries herself with a towel that has been warmed near the stove, its fibers thick and comforting. A small mirror hangs on the wall, cracked in one corner, and she looks into it for a moment, not to judge, not to fix, but simply to see. Her face is calm. Her eyes are tired, but not unkind. She touches her braid lightly, as if confirming it is still there, then turns away. From beneath the bed, she pulls out a small wooden box. Inside are a few personal things, a photograph of her sister in a paper frame, a dried flower pressed between two pages, a thimble, a spool of black thread, a folded letter with no stamp. She does not open the letter today. She simply looks at it, then closes the box and returns it to its place. There is no urgency in her movements. No need to rush. The day will unfold as it always does. She takes her coat from the hook behind the door, a heavy wool coat, dark brown, lined with faded red fabric, and brushes it gently with her hand, removing invisible dust. She checks the pockets, a handkerchief, a small key, a few copper coins. All in order. She lights the gas lamp above the table, just for a moment, to make sure the mantle is intact, then turns it off. There is no need for light now. The room is filled with the soft glow of morning, the fire still burning low in the stove, the rain casting a gentle shimmer on the walls. She wraps her shawl around her shoulders, ties it loosely at the front, and picks up her small cloth bag, where she keeps her gloves, her lunch, a spare handkerchief. She stands in the center of the room, taking it in one last time. The bed is made. The cup is drying. The fire is steady. Everything is as it should be. Then, she opens the door. It creaks softly on its hinges, a sound she knows well. She steps into the hallway, closes the door behind her, turns the key in the lock. The key feels cool in her hand. She pockets it. The hallway is dim, lit only by a single window at the far end. The floorboards creak under her boots as she walks toward the stairs. She descends slowly, one step at a time, holding the railing with a light grip. On the second floor, a door opens briefly, someone stepping out to collect a milk bottle, then closes again. The air smells faintly of porridge and damp wood. She reaches the ground floor, crosses the small entryway, and pushes open the outer door. The city greets her with a breath of cool, wet air. The rain has softened to a mist, hanging in the air like smoke. The street glistens underfoot, the cobbles dark and slick. A lamppost flickers as the gaslight within dims with the rising day. A newspaper lies abandoned on a step, its pages damp. Eleanor pulls her coat tighter around her, tucks her chin into the collar, and begins to walk. Her footsteps are quiet, steady, rhythmic, tap, 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 against the stone. She does not hurry. There is no need. The world is waking slowly, and she moves with it, not ahead of it, not behind. And you, listening now, you are walking with her. You feel the weight of your own coat, the cool air on your face, the quiet hum of a city just beginning to breathe. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to be anywhere. You are here, in this moment, in this gentle rhythm. Let your breath slow. Let your body sink. Let the story carry you, like water, like fog, like the soft and endless hush of time moving forward, one quiet step at a time. Part 2, The Walk to Work, Through the Fog of Southwark. The morning mist curls along the streets like smoke from a dying fire, wrapping around lampposts and clinging to the edges of rooftops. Eleanor walks slowly, her boots tapping a quiet rhythm against the wet cobblestones, each step sending up a small ripple of water from the gutter. The sound is soft and steady, tap, pause, tap, pause, like a clock measuring time in breaths rather than hours. She keeps her hands in her coat pockets, one wrapped around her gloves, the other around the small piece of bread she bought from the stall near her building. It is still warm, wrapped in brown paper, and the heat seeps into her fingers like a small act of kindness from the day. The air carries a mix of scents, damp wool from passing coats, the sharp tang of coal smoke, the faint sweetness of baking bread from a bakery vent, and beneath it all, the distant, earthy smell of the Thames as it flows through the city, slow and dark. She turns onto a narrower street where the houses lean slightly toward one another, their brick faces stained with years of rain and soot. Curtains are drawn back in some windows, revealing glimpses of small lives, someone folding a blanket, a child sitting at a table with a bowl of porridge, an old man reading a newspaper by the light of a gas lamp. A cat watches her from a windowsill, its tail flicking once before it turns away. At the corner, a flower seller arranges a few wilted violets in a wooden crate, her hands red from the cold. She does not speak, but nods slightly as Eleanor passes, and Eleanor returns the gesture with a quiet dip of her chin. No words are needed. There is a language in small acknowledgments, and the way people move through the same spaces, day after day, without collision, without demand. A milk cart rattles past, pulled by a heavy brown horse whose breath steams in the air. The driver, wrapped in a thick coat and cap, gives a soft click of his tongue, and the horse slows to let Eleanor cross the street. She thanks him with a quiet good morning, and he nods, his face unreadable but not unkind. The cart continues on, wheels creaking, cans clinking softly with each bump in the road. She watches it disappear into the fog, the sound fading slowly, like a memory slipping away. Ahead, the road slopes downward, and the mist grows thicker, turning the world into soft shapes and muted light. Gas lamps still burn here and there, their yellow glow blurred into halos, like distant stars seen through cloud. She passes a boy sweeping the steps of a tailor's shop, his broom making a soft, rhythmic swish against the stone. He pauses to wipe his nose with the back of his hand, then resumes, his movements steady, practiced. A woman leans out of an upper window, shaking a rug over the street, dust and crumbs falling like snow. A dog barks once from a yard behind a gate, then falls silent. Somewhere, a piano plays a slow, simple tune, just a few notes repeated, perhaps a child learning. The music does not last long. It fades as she walks, leaving only the quiet hum of the waking city. Halfway to the laundry, she stops at a small stall where an old man sells hot rolls from a covered basket. The steam rises from beneath the cloth, carrying the rich, comforting smell of fresh bread. Without a word, he lifts the lid and offers her one. She hands him a copper coin, wraps the roll in her napkin, and feels the warmth against her palm as she continues. She does not eat it yet. She will save it for later, when her hands are cold and her stomach begins to stir. For now, its presence is enough, a small promise of comfort waiting in her bag. The fog shifts as she walks, parting in places like a curtain, revealing a church spire, a bridge, a row of bicycles leaning against the wall. Then it closes again, wrapping her in softness and silence, and the feeling of being slightly apart from the world, as if she is moving through a dream that the city is dreaming of itself. Her breath mists in front of her, vanishing as quickly as it forms. Her coat grows damp at the shoulders, but she does not mind. There is a kind of peace in being unseen, in moving through the morning without expectation, without being called upon. And you, listening now, you are walking beside her. You feel the cool air on your skin, the weight of your own coat, the quiet rhythm of your breath matching hers. You do not need to speak. You do not need to remember where you are going. You are simply here, in this moment, in this soft and endless walk through the fog. Let your thoughts slow. Let your body relax. Let the sound of her footsteps, the distant hum of the city, the gentle rise and fall of the story, carry you deeper into stillness. There is no destination. There is only this, the quiet journey, the soft light, the peace of moving forward, one gentle step at a time. As the street begins to widen, the fog thins just enough to reveal the familiar outline of the boarding house where Eleanor works. It is a 3-story brick building with a sagging awning and a wooden sign that reads Hargrave Laundry and Linen Service in faded gold letters. The windows are tall and narrow, their glass slightly warped, and behind the curtains on the ground floor, she can see the faint glow of oil lamps still burning. A clothesline stretches across the small yard, empty now, swaying slightly in the damp breeze. A single pair of socks hangs forgotten on the line, dripping slowly onto the stone below. She steps through the iron gate, its hinges creaking softly, and walks along the path of cracked flagstones toward the side door. Her hand is already reaching into her pocket for the key when the door opens from within. Mrs. Poole, the head laundress, stands. In the doorway, wrapped in a thick apron, her hair pinned tightly beneath a white cap. She is a woman of few words, but her eyes soften slightly when she sees Eleanor. "Early again," she says, not unkindly, and steps aside to let her in. The warmth of the building wraps around Eleanor like a blanket, carrying the rich, soapy scent of lye and lavender, the steam from the vats, the faint musk of wet linen. Inside, the laundry room is already alive with quiet motion. 2 other women are at work, one stirring a copper boiler with a long wooden paddle, the other wringing out a sheet by hand, her arms steady despite the weight of water. The fire beneath the boiler glows red, casting flickering shadows on the walls. Piles of folded cloth sit on long tables, sorted by type, sheets, towels, aprons, shirts. A basket of buttons waits to be sewn back on. A pair of scissors rests beside a spool of thread. Everything has its place. Everything moves at the same slow, steady pace. Eleanor hangs her coat on a wooden peg near the door, ties her apron around her waist, and rolls up her sleeves. She washes her hands in a basin of warm water, lathering the soap between her fingers, then dries them on a rough towel. There is no rush. No one speaks unless necessary. The only sounds are the bubbling of the boilers, the soft thud of wet fabric hitting the wash table, the occasional creak of a floorboard, the distant drip of a faucet. A kettle sings quietly on a small stove in the corner, and Mrs. Poole pours tea into chipped mugs, passing one to Eleanor without a word. She takes it with both hands, feels the warmth seep into her skin, sips slowly. The tea is strong and dark, with just a hint of sugar. It tastes like routine. Like safety. Outside, the city continues to wake. A cart rumbles past on the main road. A bird calls from a rooftop. But in here, time feels different, slower, deeper, as if the room itself is breathing. Eleanor moves to her station, a long wooden table beside the second boiler. She lifts a basket of soiled linens and begins to sort them by color and fabric, her fingers brushing over cotton, linen, wool. Each piece carries a story, small stains, frayed hems, the faint scent of someone else's life, but she does not dwell on them. She simply works, folding, scrubbing, rinsing, wringing, her motions smooth and practiced, like a dance learned over years. And you, listening now, you are here with her. You feel the warmth of the room, the soft resistance of the cloth in your hands, the quiet hum of labor that asks nothing of you but presence. You do not need to think. You do not need to remember. You are simply moving with the rhythm, like a leaf carried by a slow river. Let your breath deepen. Let your shoulders drop. Let the story wrap around you like steam, like warmth, like the gentle certainty that, for now, you are exactly where you need to be. The morning passes in quiet layers. The sun, still hidden behind clouds, sends a pale light through the high windows. Dust motes drift in the air, catching the glow like tiny stars. A cat stretches on a shelf near the stove, yawns, and settles back into sleep. The women work. The boilers bubble. The tea is refilled. And outside, the fog lifts slowly, revealing the city once more, not all at once, but in pieces, like a memory returning. You are still walking. Still breathing. Still here. And the story continues, softly, gently, one quiet moment at a time. Part 3, The Rhythm of the Wash House, Labor and Repetition. The morning deepens into a steady hush, the kind that settles over a room where hands are busy and minds are quiet. The wash house breathes with a rhythm all its own, the slow sigh of steam rising from copper vats, the soft thud of wet fabric dropped onto wooden tables, the occasional creak of a floorboard beneath a slow-moving foot. There is no hurry here. No bells to mark the hour. Time does not press forward, it simply flows, like water through fingers, like breath through lungs. Eleanor stands at her station, sleeves rolled to the elbows, apron damp at the front, hands moving with the quiet precision of someone who has done this 1,000 times before. She lifts a soiled sheet from the sorting basket, unfolds it carefully, checks for stains, then submerges it into the first wash tub, a wide, shallow basin filled with warm, soapy water. The liquid ripples as the fabric sinks, bubbles forming along the edges where the lye meets the cloth. She takes the wooden paddle, smooth from years of use, its handle worn to fit the curve of a palm, and begins to stir. Not fast. Not hard. Just enough to coax the dirt from the fibers, to let the water do its work. Her arms move in slow arcs, steady and even, like the sweep of a clock's hand. The motion is hypnotic. Repetitive. Soothing. One sheet. Then another. Then a stack of pillowcases, their corners frayed, their embroidery faded. She works through them one by one, her fingers brushing over each piece as if reading a story written in thread and stain. A faint ring near the collar of a shirt, perhaps from sweat, perhaps from collar starch. A small tear on a towel, mended once, now coming undone. A child's nightgown, still carrying the faint scent of lavender water. She does not dwell on whose hands wore these, whose skin touched this cloth. But she feels their presence, quiet and distant, like echoes in an empty room. After washing, she moves the linens to the rinse tub, clean water, cool this time, drawn fresh from the pump in the yard. She lifts each piece, presses it gently beneath the surface, watches the suds swirl away like smoke. Then she wrings them out, first by hand, twisting the fabric tightly, squeezing until the water runs clear, then through the wooden mangle, turning the crank with slow, even turns. The machine groans softly with each rotation, a sound as familiar as breath. The sheets emerge damp but not dripping, ready to be hung or folded. Mrs. Poole moves through the room like a shadow, checking the fires, adjusting the draft on the boilers, testing the temperature of the water with the back of her hand. She says little, but her presence is steady, like the heartbeat of the room. Now and then, she places a fresh mug of tea beside one of the women, or adds a log to the stove, the crackle of splitting with a brief punctuation in the silence. One of the younger laundresses hums a tune under her breath, not a song with words, just a soft melody, rising and falling like a lullaby half remembered. No one stops her. No one joins in. But the sound lingers, blending with the steam, the water, the slow turning of the mangle. Eleanor takes a small break, not because the work demands it, but because the body knows when to pause. She sits on a wooden stool near the back wall, her tea in hand, her breath slow and even. The warmth of the room wraps around her, the heat from the boilers, the steam in the air, the residual warmth of her own movement. She closes her eyes for a moment, just a few breaths, feeling the stillness within the motion. Her hands rest in her lap, red from the water, the skin slightly softened at the edges. She notices the small scar on her thumb, a burn from years ago, when she lifted a pot without a cloth. She does not think of the pain. She thinks only of how familiar it feels, like an old friend. Outside, the city continues, but it feels far away now, the distant rumble of carts, the occasional shout from a street vendor, the chime of a church bell marking the hour. None of it reaches inside. Here, there is only the rhythm, wash, rinse, wring, repeat. The women work in silence, not because they are unfriendly, but because words are not needed. Their hands speak for them. Their presence is enough. A memory comes, not sudden, not sharp, but soft, like light through a fogged window. She is a child again, standing beside her mother in a small kitchen lit by a single oil lamp. The table is covered with linens. Her mother's hands move just like hers do now, folding, scrubbing, wringing. Eleanor sits on a stool, dipping cloths into a basin, mimicking the motions. Her mother does not praise her, does not correct her, simply lets her be there, part of the rhythm. The smell of soap and warm water fills the air. A pot of stew simmers on the stove. The rain taps gently on the roof. And in that moment, there is no past. No future. Only the quiet certainty of being needed, of belonging. The memory fades as gently as it came. She opens her eyes. The room is the same. The steam still rises. The mangle still turns. But something inside her has softened. She takes another sip of tea, feels the warmth move through her, and returns to her station. Now, the drying begins. She carries the damp linens to the long clothesline that stretches across the back room, thick ropes strung between iron hooks, already holding a few sheets that ripple slightly in the warm air. She pins each piece with wooden clothespins, her fingers moving with quiet care. A pillowcase here. A towel there. The fabric hangs heavy, glistening faintly in the dim light. As more pieces are added, the room begins to fill with a soft, rhythmic sway, the gentle movement of cloth in the unseen draft, like breath in a sleeping chest. Time passes. Not in minutes. Not in hours. But in layers. The sun, still hidden behind clouds, sends a pale glow through the high windows. Dust motes drift in the air, catching the light like tiny stars. A fly buzzes once near the ceiling, then vanishes. The cat from earlier has found a warm spot on a shelf near the stove and curls into a tight ball, its tail twitching once before stillness returns. Eleanor folds a stack of dry towels, warm from the drying rack, their fibers soft from repeated washing. She stacks them neatly on the table, aligns the corners with quiet precision. Each fold is deliberate. Each motion complete. There is no rush to finish. No reward for speed. Only the satisfaction of doing something well, simply because it is there to be done. And you, listening now, you are here with her. You feel the warmth of the room, the soft resistance of the cloth in your hands, the quiet hum of labor that asks nothing of you but presence. You do not need to think. You do not need to remember. You are simply moving with the rhythm, like a leaf carried by a slow river. Let your breath deepen. Let your shoulders drop. Let the story wrap around you like steam, like warmth, like the gentle certainty that, for now, you are exactly where you need to be. The afternoon light shifts, growing softer, longer. Shadows stretch across the floor, merging with the steam, turning the room into a place between worlds, not fully awake, not yet asleep. The women continue their work. The boilers bubble. The tea is refilled. The clothespins click softly against the line. There is no grand moment. No revelation. No turning point. Just this, the quiet endurance of ordinary hands, doing ordinary things, in an ordinary room, on an ordinary day. And yet, there is peace here. Not the kind that comes after struggle. Not the kind that follows noise. But the kind that exists in the space between breaths, in the hush of a room where no one is in a hurry, in the steady rhythm of hands that know their work, in the quiet certainty that, for now, everything is as it should be. The light in the wash house has changed. It is no longer the pale glow of morning, nor the steady warmth of midday, but something softer, deeper, a quiet gold that filters through the high, smudged windows and settles on the wooden tables, the copper vats, the damp floor. The steam still rises, but more slowly now, like breath in cold air, and the room carries a different kind of stillness, not the alert hush of early work, but the gentle fatigue of hours well spent. Eleanor's arms are tired, but not sore. Her hands move with the same rhythm, but now there is a slight heaviness to them, a quiet satisfaction in the way her body knows exactly how much pressure to apply when wringing out a sheet, how to fold the pillowcase so the corners meet just right, how to hang a towel so it dries evenly. She takes another seat on the stool, this time not for rest, but to mend. From a small wooden box beneath the table, she pulls out a stack of linens that need repair, a shirt with a torn cuff, a pair of trousers with a loose button, a handkerchief with a frayed edge. She threads a needle with black cotton, ties the end with a careful knot, and begins. Her stitches are small, even, not meant to be seen, only to hold. There is no rush. No need to finish them all today. The needle moves in and out of the fabric, a soft tap-tap against her thimble, a sound so quiet it blends with the distant drip of a faucet, the occasional creak of the building settling. Mrs. Poole passes by, glances at the mending, and gives a small nod. It is the closest thing to praise she offers, and it means more than words. She sits across from Eleanor, pulls out her own sewing, a sock with a hole in the heel, and begins to darn it with slow, methodical stitches. The two women do not speak. They do not need to. The act of mending is its own conversation, a quiet exchange of care, of patience, of the belief that things worth keeping are worth repairing. A kettle whistles softly on the stove. One of the other women rises, pours water into a large pot, adds a scoop of lye soap, and stirs. The scent of clean soap fills the air again, sharp and faintly medicinal, mingling with the warmth of wool and cotton. The boilers will need refilling soon. The fire will need more coal. But for now, there is a pause, not an end, not a break, but a soft dip in the rhythm, like the space between heartbeats. Eleanor's thoughts drift, not in any particular direction, but like smoke rising from the stove, formless, slow, unhurried. She thinks of the geranium on her windowsill, how it survived the winter in a chipped clay pot, how it set up a new leaf just yesterday. She thinks of the rolls she saved from this morning, still wrapped in paper in her bag, how she will eat it later with a spoonful of jam. She thinks of the letter she wrote to her sister, still sitting on the table in her room, the ink dry, the paper folded, the envelope unsealed. She does not worry about it. There is no urgency. The post will be collected tomorrow. The words will reach their destination in time. And you, listening now, you are still here. You feel the weight of your own body, the soft pressure of your blanket, the slow rise and fall of your chest. You do not need to follow every detail. You do not need to remember every stitch, every sheet, every drop of water. You only need to be here, in this quiet room, where nothing demands your attention, where nothing asks you to be anything other than what you are. The women return to their tasks. The mending is set aside. The boilers are refilled. The fire is stoked. The last of the wet linens are hung to dry, their weight causing the ropes to sag slightly, their edges fluttering in the warm draft. A stack of clean, folded towels is placed into a wicker basket, ready to be delivered to the boarding house rooms. A shirt is pressed with a heavy iron, heated on the stove, wiped with a damp cloth. Then moved slowly over the fabric, the steam rising in soft puffs. The smell of warm cotton fills the air, clean and comforting, like sunlight on a dry sheet. As the light outside fades further, the gas lamps are lit, one by one, with a long match and a soft whoosh of flame. Their glow is soft, yellow, not bright enough to banish the shadows, but enough to guide hands through the final tasks. The room grows quieter, not because people are leaving, but because words have long since been set aside. There is only the rhythm now, the slow turn of the mangle, the soft thud of folded cloth, the creak of a wooden chair, the quiet sip of tea from a chipped mug. Eleanor washes her hands one last time, rinsing the soap from her fingers, drying them on a rough towel. She removes her apron, folds it neatly, hangs it on its peg. Her coat is still damp at the shoulders, but she does not mind. She wraps her shawl around her again, tucks her gloves into her bag, checks that her lunch paper is still there, the roll, half-eaten now, wrapped carefully in the same brown paper. Mrs. Poole stands by the door, keys in hand. She looks around the room, the clean tables, the empty boilers, the basket of folded linens waiting for tomorrow. She does not say well done. She does not say good night. She simply turns the lock on the stove, blows out the last gas lamp, and opens the door. The evening air is cool, carrying the scent of rain and distant smoke. The street is quieter now. Fewer footsteps. Fewer carts. The gas lamps along the road burn steadily, their light blurred in the gathering mist. Eleanor steps out, closes the door behind her, and begins to walk. And you, listening now, you are walking with her. You feel the cool air on your face, the soft weight of your own coat, the quiet rhythm of your breath. You do not need to go anywhere. You do not need to do anything. You are simply here, in this moment, in this gentle, endless walk through the hush of the city. Let your body sink deeper. Let your thoughts grow slower. Let the story carry you, not to an end, but into stillness. Part 4, Evening Light, a moment of rest in a shared kitchen. The air in the tenement hallway is still and close, carrying the faint scent of boiled cabbage from an earlier meal, the lingering warmth of a stove long since cooled, and the soft mustiness of old wood and wool coats left too long in the closet. Eleanor climbs the stairs slowly, each step creaking under her boots, the sound absorbed by the quiet of the building. It is not late, but the day already feels long behind her, like a road walked in soft rain. Her body is tired in the way that comes not from strain, but from hours of steady motion, the quiet fatigue of hands that have worked without pause, of feet that have stood on stone, of breath that has moved in rhythm with steam and silence. She reaches the second floor and pauses outside the shared kitchen door. Light spills from beneath it, a warm, buttery glow that flickers slightly, not from a gas lamp, but from a candle. She knocks once, softly, not because she needs permission, but because it is the small ritual that keeps the peace. A voice from within, Mrs. Harlowe's, low and calm, says, "Come in," and Eleanor opens the door. The room is small, with a round table in the center, 3 chairs pulled close, and a narrow stove against the far wall. A single candle burns in a glass holder, its flame swaying gently as the door opens. On the table, a kettle sits near the edge, still warm, and 2 mugs remain, one with a ring of tea at the bottom. Mrs. Harlowe sits in her usual chair, a pair of reading glasses perched on her nose, a thin book open in her hands, not a novel, but a borrowed volume from the lending library, its cover worn, its pages soft with use. She looks up, smiles faintly, and closes the book with a gentle tap of her palm. "You're just in time," she says. "The stew's still warm." Eleanor nods, hangs her coat on the back of the door, and moves to the stove. Beneath a metal cover, a pot simmers quietly, its contents thick with potatoes, onions, and small pieces of salted beef, the kind that takes hours to soften, to release its flavor into the broth. She lifts the lid, and the steam rises, carrying the rich, earthy scent of slow cooking, comforting, familiar, like a memory of childhood winters. She finds a bowl in the cupboard, one with a small chip on the rim, and fills it carefully, leaving room for a piece of bread from the loaf on the table. She sits in her usual chair, the one closest to the stove, where the warmth lingers longest, and begins to eat. No one speaks. Not yet. There is no need. The room is full of quiet companionship, the kind that does not require words, only presence. Mrs. Harlowe returns to her book, turning the pages slowly, her finger tracing the lines as she reads. Across from her, Miss Tillman sits with a sock in her lap, a needle in one hand, a spool of gray thread in the other. She is darning the heel, her movements small and precise, her eyes focused in the candlelight. The only sounds are the soft clink of Eleanor's spoon against the bowl, the occasional creak of a chair, the distant drip of a faucet in the sink, and the quiet rustle of paper as Mrs. Harlowe turns a page. Outside, the city breathes in the evening hush. A dog barks once, far away. A cart rolls past on the main road, its wheels muffled by the rain-soaked cobbles. But in here, the world feels smaller, softer, held in the circle of candlelight. The walls seem to lean inward slightly, not to close in, but to shelter. The air is warm, not hot, just enough to take the edge off the evening chill. A cat, old, gray, and missing part of one ear, stretches from its place on a folded blanket near the stove, yawns with a silent opening of jaws, and settles back into sleep, its tail twitching once before stillness returns. Eleanor eats slowly, not because the food is scarce, but because the act of eating is part of the rest. Each spoonful is warm, savory, thick with the weight of nourishment. She chews deliberately, feels the texture of the potato, the slight chew of the meat, the way the broth coats her throat. She drinks a small cup of water afterward, then places her bowl in the sink, rinses it gently, leaves it to dry. She does not rush. There is no next task waiting. No voice calling her name. Just this, the quiet fullness of a simple meal, the warmth of the room, the soft hum of being nowhere else. She takes out her small notebook, a leather-bound book with pages that have begun to curl at the edges, and a short pencil. She does not write often, but when she does, it is always in this room, always at this hour. She opens to a blank page, smooths it with her hand, and begins. Dear Clara, the weather is cold, but the stove is good. I am well. The geranium on the sill has a new leaf, green and strong. I watered it this morning before I left. I saw a sparrow on the windowsill, tapping its beak against the glass, as if asking to come in. I opened the window just a crack, but it flew away. Perhaps it prefers the cold. I do not blame it. I worked in the wash house today. The boilers were warm. Mrs. Poole gave me an extra roll at lunch. I saved half for tomorrow. I think of you often, especially in the evenings, when the light is soft and the house is quiet. I hope your hands are warm. I hope your tea is sweet. I hope you are at peace. I will post this when I can. No hurry. Love, Eleanor. She does not seal the letter. She folds it carefully, places it back in the notebook, and closes the cover. It will wait. Like so many things, it does not need to be finished tonight. Mrs. Harlow looks up from her book. Any news from Yorkshire? She asks, not looking directly, but keeping her eyes on the page as she speaks. Eleanor shakes her head. Not yet. But I wrote today. A small smile. That's something. Miss Tillman does not look up, but her needle pauses for a breath before continuing. My sister writes every fortnight, she says, her voice quiet, almost dreamlike. Always the same paper. Always the same handwriting. I can tell how she is just by the slant of the letters. No one replies. No one needs to. The words hang in the air like smoke, soft and true, then dissolve into the quiet. Eleanor rises and moves to the window. It is dark now, the glass black with night, but she can see the faint reflection of the room, the candle, the table, the women, the sleeping cat. Beyond the glass, the city is a blur of light and shadow, gas lamps glowing in the mist, windows lit in distant buildings, the occasional flicker of a match struck on a street corner. She watches without expectation, without desire to be out there. She is content here, in this small room, in this moment of stillness. She returns to her chair, pulls her shawl tighter around her shoulders, and closes her eyes. Not to sleep. Not yet. But to rest in the warmth, in the quiet, in the knowledge that for now, she is safe, she is fed, she is not alone. And you, listening now, you are here with her. You feel the warmth of the stove on your skin, the soft weight of a blanket over your legs, the quiet hum of a room where no one is in a hurry. You do not need to speak. You do not need to move. You are simply present in this gentle hour where nothing is asked of you but to be. Let your breath slow. Let your thoughts drift like smoke. Let the story carry you, not forward, but inward. The candle burns lower, its flame shrinking to a small, steady glow that flickers in the still air. The wax pools around the wick, soft and golden, beginning to harden at the edges. Mrs. Harlow closes her book and places it gently on the table, the spine cracking faintly as it settles. She removes her glasses, folds them with careful fingers, and tucks them into a small cloth pouch. Her hands are thin, the skin translucent with age, but her movements are deliberate, unhurried. She reaches for her mug, finds it empty, and sets it aside without comment. Miss Tillman finishes the last stitch in the sock, pulls the thread taut, bites it gently with her teeth, and knots it with a practiced twist of her fingers. She holds the sock up to the light, turns it slowly, inspects her work. Satisfied, she places it in a small basket beside her chair, already holding 3 other mended pairs, each folded neatly, ready to be returned to their owner. She does not speak of who they belong to. She does not need to. The act of mending is its own kind of care, a quiet offering to a world that often feels threadbare. She stretches her hands, flexes her fingers, then rests them in her lap. Her eyes close, not in sleep, but in rest, her face softening, her breath deepening. The room grows quieter. The cat stirs, shifts position, tucks its paws beneath its chest, and settles again. The drip from the faucet slows to once every few seconds, a soft plink that echoes in the stillness like a heartbeat measured in water. Eleanor opens her eyes. The warmth of the stove still radiates, but the room is cooling. She rises and adds a small log to the firebox, not because it is needed, but because the ritual feels right, the scrape of metal, the soft thud of wood, the brief flare of flame as it catches. She closes the door gently, adjusts the draft, and returns to her chair. The fire responds slowly, sending out a fresh wave of heat that rolls across the floor, touches her boots, climbs up her legs. She pulls her shawl closer, tucks her hands into the fabric, and lets her breath match the rhythm of the flames, rising, falling, rising, falling. Mrs. Harlow gets up and moves to the cupboard, opens it carefully, and takes out a small jar of honey. She dips a spoon into it, the thick liquid clinging to the metal, golden and slow. She stirs it into her mug, pours in hot water from the kettle, and offers the jar to the others. Miss Tillman shakes her head. Eleanor accepts a spoonful, watches it dissolve into her tea, swirls the liquid gently. The scent is faintly floral, warm, like summer remembered. She sips, feels the sweetness move through her, not sharp, not sudden, but deep and soothing, like a hand resting on a tired shoulder. No one speaks. The silence is not empty. It is full of warmth, of rest, of the quiet understanding that being together does not require words. They are not family, not by blood, but by something softer, shared space, shared meals, shared silences. They have learned each other's rhythms, the way Mrs. Harlow always reads before bed, the way Miss Tillman hums when she sews, the way Eleanor always rinses her bowl before leaving it to dry. These small things bind them more tightly than any oath. Outside, the city continues in its slow evening breath. A distant church bell marks the hour, 7 chimes, soft and muffled by the fog. A child laughs somewhere above, then a door closes. A window opens, a voice calls out, then silence returns. The gas lamps along the street burn steadily, their light blurred in the mist, casting halos on the wet cobbles. A cat moves through the shadows, low to the ground, tail high, disappearing beneath a wagon. Eleanor thinks of nothing important. She thinks of the texture of the bread she ate, the way the candlelight caught the edge of Miss Tillman's thimble, the sound of the fire when the log settled. She thinks of the letters she wrote, still in her notebook, how the words felt true even if they were simple. She does not worry about whether her sister will receive it, whether she will reply. She only knows that writing it made her feel closer, as if distance could be bridged by ink and paper, by the act of remembering someone in the quiet of the evening. And you, listening now, you are still here. You feel the warmth of the room, the soft weight of your own blanket, the slow rhythm of your breath. You do not need to follow every detail. You do not need to remember every word. You only need to be present in this gentle hour where nothing is demanded, where nothing is expected. Mrs. Harlow gets up, blows out the candle with a soft breath. The flame vanishes, leaving only a wisp of smoke that curls toward the ceiling. The room is not dark. Moonlight filters through the window, pale and quiet, casting soft shapes on the floor. The women rise slowly, one by one. Chairs scrape gently. Shawls are adjusted. Boots are checked for dampness. They exchange no goodnights. No kisses. No embraces. But as Eleanor leaves the room, Mrs. Harlow places a hand briefly on her arm, just for a breath, warm and steady, then lets go. It is enough. The hallway is darker now, the air cooler. Eleanor climbs the stairs to her room, her steps slow, her body heavy with rest. She opens her door, steps inside, closes it behind her. The room is cold, but not harsh. She lights the small oil lamp on the table, its glow soft and yellow, then moves to the stove. She builds a small fire, paper, kindling, one lump of coal, and breathes it to life, just enough to take the edge off the night. She removes her boots, places them side by side. Unpins her hair, lets it fall. Washes her face with cool water, dries it with a towel warmed near the stove. She changes into her nightgown, buttons it slowly, rolls the sleeves to her wrists. Then she sits by the window, looks out at the city, at the scattered lights, at the slow drift of fog between the buildings. The geranium on the sill is still there, its new leaf catching the lamplight. She touches it gently with one finger, feels its firmness, its life. And you, listening now, you are here with her. You feel the quiet of the room, the softness of the bed, the warmth of the stove. You do not need to stay awake. You do not need to listen to the end. You can let go now. Let your breath slow. Let your body sink. Let the story fade into the hush of the night. Part 5, The Night Watch, Staying Awake in a Cold Room. The fire in the stove has settled into a quiet glow, the coal reduced to a bed of soft orange embers that pulse faintly in the dark. The room is still, not silent. There is a difference, but wrapped in the small, distant sounds that belong to a building breathing through the night. A floorboard creaks somewhere below, as if the house itself is shifting in its sleep. Water drips once in the sink, then waits. A window rattles softly in its frame, nudged by a draft that slips through the cracks like a visitor who knows it is not welcome, but comes anyway. Outside, the city hums at a whisper, wheels on whetstone, a voice calling from a distance, the low groan of a barge on the Thames, but none of it feels urgent. It is all part of the night's slow rhythm, like the beat of a heart heard through layers of wool and memory. Eleanor lies in bed, the quilt pulled up to her chin, her hands tucked beneath the blanket for warmth. She is not cold, not truly, but the air carries that thin edge of winter that never quite leaves, even in spring. She stares at the ceiling, where the lamplight casts soft, wavering shapes, shadows from the flame, moving like water. She does not try to sleep. She does not chase it. She simply waits, not with impatience, but with a kind of quiet companionship, as if sleep is a guest who will arrive when it is ready, and she has no right to summon it. Her breath moves slowly, in and out, steady and even. She follows it for a while, not to meditate, not to clear her mind, but just to feel it. The slight coolness at the tip of her nose. The warmth in her chest. The way her body rises and falls, like a boat on calm water. She listens to the silence between breaths, to the space where nothing happens, where the world is held in suspension. A memory comes, not from today, but from long ago, a summer evening in a village outside York. She is a child again, barefoot on a grassy hill, the sun low and golden, the air thick with the scent of clover and warm earth. Her mother sits beside her, mending a dress, the needle flashing in the light. A sheep bleats in the distance. A brook murmurs over stones. A bee drifts past, heavy with pollen. No one speaks. No one needs to. The moment is complete, not because anything happened, but because it simply was. The memory does not stay. It drifts away like smoke, leaving no ache, no longing, only the faint warmth of having remembered. She turns onto her side, facing the window. The oil lamp still burns, but low now, the flame small and steady. Rain has begun again, not hard, but in soft, scattered drops that tap against the glass like fingers testing the surface of water. She watches the droplets form, slide down the pane, merge with others, disappear. Each one follows its own path, never the same twice. She follows one for a long time, until it vanishes at the edge of the frame. Then another takes its place. And another. Her thoughts do not race. They drift, like leaves on a pond, moving with no destination, no urgency. She thinks of the roll she ate at lunch, how the crust cracked under her teeth. She thinks of the way Mrs. Poole handed her the extra one, without a word, just a small tilt of the basket. She thinks of the letter in her notebook, how the paper felt between her fingers, how the pencil made that soft scratch as she wrote, "I hope you are at peace." She does not wonder if her sister will read it. She only knows that writing it made her feel closer, as if love could be folded into paper and carried through time. The fire in the stove sighs, the embers shifting with a soft crackle. She does not get up to tend it. It will burn down soon enough. She does not mind the cold. There is comfort in the slow fading of warmth, and knowing that even heat must rest. She pulls the quilt higher, tucks it beneath her arms, and closes her eyes. Not to sleep. Not yet. But to feel the weight of the blanket, the softness of the pillow, the quiet hum of her own body. A sound from next door, someone turning in bed, a creak of springs, a soft sigh. Then stillness. A baby cries once, far away, then is soothed. The city breathes. The rain continues. The flame flickers. And you, listening now, you are here with her. You feel the cool air on your skin, the heaviness in your limbs, the slow rhythm of your breath. You do not need to fall asleep. You do not need to try. You only need to be here, in this moment, where nothing is required, where nothing is missing. She opens her eyes again. The room is darker now. The flame is smaller. The shadows have grown, merging with the corners, softening the edges of furniture, turning the chair, the table, the coat on the hook into shapes without names. She does not fear the dark. She knows it. It has kept her company many nights. It does not ask for anything. It simply holds space. She thinks of the wash house, of the steam rising from the vats, of the way the light caught the water droplets on a hanging sheet, turning them into tiny stars. She thinks of the walk home, of the mist curling around lampposts, of the quiet click of her boots on stone. She thinks of the shared kitchen, of the candle, of the silence between women who do not need to speak. These are not grand things. No one will write of them. But they are real. They are hers. And in this quiet hour, they feel like enough. She closes her eyes again. Her breath slows. Her body softens. Her thoughts grow farther apart, like stars in a deep sky. She does not fight the wakefulness. She does not invite sleep. She simply lets the night hold her, as it holds the city, as it holds the river, as it holds all the quiet ones who are still awake, who are simply breathing, simply being. The flame in the lamp flickers once, twice, then goes out. The room is dark. But not empty. And you, listening now, you are still here. You do not need to stay. You do not need to go. You can simply drift, like ash in the air, like fog over the river, like a thought that dissolves before it is finished. The night is long. But you are not alone. You are with her. You are with the quiet. You are with the stillness. And that is enough. Darkness fills the room now, complete and soft, not the sharp black of absence, but the gentle deepening of a space that has settled into rest. The last ember in the stove has faded, leaving only a trace of warmth in the iron and a faint scent of cooled ash. The rain continues its quiet rhythm against the window, irregular, unhurried, like a hand tapping a slow tune on a tabletop. Each drop lands with a soft tap, then waits, then another follows, not in pattern, but in peace. The glass is cold to the touch, but she does not mind. She lies still beneath the quilt, her hands now resting on top of the blanket, palms open, fingers relaxed. There is no tension in her body. No need to move. No need to think. She listens. Not for anything in particular. Not for footsteps, not for voices, not for the sound of morning. She listens the way one might watch smoke rise, without expectation, without effort. The building breathes around her. A pipe sighs in the wall. A door settles on its hinges. Somewhere below, water runs briefly through old pipes, then stops. The floor creaks once, as if someone turned in their sleep, though no one walks. These are not interruptions. They are part of the night's language, the quiet speech of a house that knows how to rest. A memory returns, not clear, not sharp, but felt more than seen. She is standing in a doorway, long ago, watching her mother light the stove before dawn. The room is dark. The air is cold. Her mother moves slowly, arranging paper, kindling, coal, then kneeling to blow gently into the nascent flame. The fire catches. Light spreads across the floor. Her mother does not turn. Does not speak. But the warmth grows, and the child, herself, steps forward, drawn not by words, but by heat, by presence, by the unspoken promise that someone is tending the fire. The memory does not last. It fades like breath on glass. But the feeling remains, a quiet certainty that care exists, even when no one speaks of it. She shifts slightly, turning onto her back, her head resting deep in the pillow. Her breath moves in long, even waves. In. Out. In. Out. There is no attempt to control it. No counting. No technique. Only the natural rhythm of a body that knows how to breathe, how to rest, how to endure. Her thoughts, once drifting like leaves, now float farther apart, single images, soft impressions, then nothing. The texture of wool. The smell of wet stone. The sound of a kettle beginning to sing. Then silence. Then another image. Then stillness. And you, listening now, you are here with her. You feel the weight of your own blanket, the soft pressure of your pillow, the slow, deep rhythm of your breath. You do not need to follow the story. You do not need to remember her name. You only need to be present in this quiet space where nothing is demanded, where nothing is missing. Outside, the city continues in its slow night breath. A dog barks once, far away, then falls silent. A cart rolls past, wheels creaking, then fades into the distance. A window opens briefly, someone checking the weather, perhaps, or listening to the rain, then closes again. The gas lamps still burn along the main road, their light blurred by mist, casting halos on the wet cobbles. But here, in this room, the world feels smaller, softer, held in the hush between heartbeats. She does not sleep. Not yet. But she is not awake in the way that demands action. She is in the space between, where the mind lets go, where the body sinks, where time no longer measures minutes, but moments of stillness. Her fingers twitch once, then still. Her eyelids grow heavier, not from effort, but from release. She does not fight it. She does not welcome it. She simply allows. A final memory surfaces, so faint it may not be real. She is walking through a field at dusk, long grass brushing her ankles, the air thick with the scent of earth and wild mint. The sky is purple, the first star appears. There is no destination. No reason to be there. Just the feeling of movement, of breath, of being small beneath a vast sky. Then the image dissolves, not into darkness, but into sensation, the softness of the bed, the warmth beneath the quilt, the distant sound of rain. Her breath slows further. One breath blends into the next. Her hands relax completely. Her shoulders drop. Her jaw unclenches. And the room, the house, the city, the night, all of it softens around her. There is no moment when sleep arrives. No turning point. No final thought. Only the gentle release of one breath into the next, into the quiet, into the deep, into the stillness that has been waiting all along. Part 6. The City at Rest, a wider view of London in the small hours. The night deepens, not with sound, but with silence, the kind that settles over a city like a blanket drawn slowly across a bed. Most windows are dark now. The gas lamps still burn along the streets, their yellow glow softened by the ever-present fog, casting halos on the wet cobblestones, their light reflected in shallow puddles like scattered coins. But the world beneath them moves slowly, if at all. A cat slips through the shadows, low to the ground, tail high, pausing once to sniff the air before vanishing beneath a wagon. A shutter creaks in the wind. A single leaf, damp and curled, skitters across the road and comes to rest against the curb. London breathes in its sleep. Not the sharp inhale of morning, not the busy exhalation of midday, but the long, slow rhythm of a body that has carried the weight of the day and now allows itself to rest. In a library on Fleet Street, a night guard turns a page of a book, the sound soft and dry, like a leaf breaking. He does not read for pleasure. He reads to stay awake, his lamp low, his coat pulled close, a cup of cold tea beside him. His eyes move across the lines, not to remember, but to feel the presence of words in the quiet. The room is full of books, their spines cracked, their pages yellowed, their stories waiting. No one will open them tonight. But they are here. And that is enough. In a small hospital ward near St. Thomas, a nurse walks between the beds, her shoes making no sound on the wooden floor. She adjusts a blanket over a sleeping man, checks the pulse at his wrist, writes a note in a ledger. Her hands are steady, her movements small and precise. She does not hum. She does not sigh. She simply does what must be done, not for praise, not for thanks, but because someone must. She pours water from a pitcher into a glass, places it within reach, and moves on. The air is cool, carrying the faint scent of carbolic and linen. A clock on the wall ticks softly, each beat spaced far apart, as if time itself is tired. On the river, a barge rests against the wharf, its deck empty, its cargo covered in tarps weighted with stones. The water laps gently against the hull, a slow, rhythmic shush, like a hand stroking hair. A single lantern swings from a mast, its light dim, barely cutting through the mist. Below deck, a man sleeps on a cot, wrapped in a heavy coat, his boots lined up neatly beside him. He will rise before dawn to deliver coal to a warehouse in Southwark. But for now, he dreams of nothing clear, nothing sharp, just the sensation of warmth, of stillness, of being held by the slow rocking of the boat on dark water. In a stable behind a quiet inn, a horse shifts in its stall, the straw rustling under its hooves. It chews slowly on a mouthful of hay, its breath steaming in the cold air. The groom has already come and gone, checked the bedding, refilled the water bucket, spoken a few soft words. Now, the animal stands in peace, one leg slightly bent, its eyes half closed. It does not sleep deeply. It does not need to. It only needs to rest, to feel the warmth of its own body, the safety of the walls, the quiet certainty that no one will call it into motion tonight. And you, listening now, you are here with them. You feel the stillness of the library, the hush of the hospital, the gentle sway of the barge, the warmth of the stable. You do not need to be awake. You do not need to be anywhere. You are simply present in this vast, quiet city, where so many are resting, where so many are enduring, where so many are doing nothing more than breathing through the night. In a boarding house near Paddington, a woman sits by a window, a letter in her hands. She has read it many times tonight, but she reads it again, slowly, as if the words might change. They do not. But the act of reading them brings her close to someone far away. She folds the paper carefully, places it in an envelope, but does not seal it. She will wait. There is no rush. The post will go out in the morning. The letter will find its way. For now, the words are enough. She turns off the lamp, lies down, pulls the blanket to her chin, and closes her eyes. In a small flat above a bakery, a man lies in bed, one arm behind his head, staring at the ceiling. He does not sleep. He listens, to the wind outside, to the creak of the building, to the distant chime of a clock marking the hour. He thinks of nothing important. He thinks of the taste of bread that morning, of the way the sunlight fell across the table, of the sound of his neighbor whistling while sweeping the steps. Small things. Ordinary things. But in this quiet hour, they feel like gifts. The city is full of such moments. Not grand. Not loud. But real. A fire dies in a stove. A cat curls into a ball on a warm shelf. A teacup sits on a table, half full, forgotten. A coat hangs by the door, damp at the shoulders. A book lies open, face down, marking a page. No one sees these things. No one writes of them. But they are part of the night's quiet work, the unseen rhythm of endurance, of rest, of simply being. And you, listening now, you are part of this, too. Your breath is part of the silence. Your stillness is part of the peace. You do not need to do anything. You do not need to be anyone. You only need to be here, in this moment, where the world is soft, where the air is calm, where the story does not end, but simply fades, like mist into dawn. Let your breath slow. Let your body sink. Let your thoughts drift, not towards sleep, but into it. Gently, naturally, like a leaf falling onto still water. The city rests. The night holds. You are safe. Sleep now. The hours pass not in sound, but in stillness, a slow deepening of quiet, like water settling after ripples fade. The gas lamps still burn along the streets, but their light grows softer, their flames smaller, as if even they are beginning to tire. The fog lingers, not thick, not heavy, but like a breath held in the air, wrapping the city in a veil of softness. Few footsteps echo now. Few carts roll. The world has turned inward, folded into itself, like a hand closing around warmth. In a small chapel near Bermondsey, a night watchman walks the aisles, his boots muffled by the worn carpet. He carries no lantern. He does not need one. He knows this space by memory, the curve of the pews, the creak of the third step near the pulpit, the way the stained glass catches the faint glow from the street lamp outside. He pauses before the altar, not to pray, not to kneel, but simply to stand. The room is cold, the air still. A single candle burns in a holder, its flame small, steady, unmoving. He watches it for a long moment, then turns and walks back down the aisle, his shadow stretching and shrinking with each step. No one will know he was here. No one will thank him. But the chapel is safe. The candle still burns. And that is enough. In a narrow alley behind a row of shops, a stray dog lies curled against the wall, sheltered from the wind. Its fur is matted, its ribs faintly visible, but its breathing is slow, even. It does not dream of food, not of warmth, not of a hand to stroke its head. It only knows that for now, it is still. It is hidden. It is not running. And in this moment, that is all it needs. Rain falls lightly on the cobblestones, pooling in the cracks, but the dog remains dry beneath the overhang. Its eyes are closed. Its paws twitch once, then still. On the top floor of a tenement in Whitechapel, an old woman sits by a window, a shawl wrapped around her shoulders. She does not sleep. She watches the sky, where the stars are faint, blurred by the city's glow and the drifting mist. She does not expect anything. She does not wait for a voice, a knock, a sign. She simply looks, as she has done many nights before, finding comfort not in what she sees, but in the act of seeing. Her hands rest in her lap, one folded over the other, the skin thin, the veins blue beneath. A teacup sits beside her, long cold, the last sip untouched. She does not mind. The ritual of making tea was the comfort, not the drinking. And you, listening now, you are here with her. You feel the cool air near the window, the weight of the shawl, the quiet hum of a mind that has learned to rest without sleeping. You do not need to understand her thoughts. You do not need to share her memories. You only need to be present in this gentle hour where nothing is asked, where nothing is missing. In a print shop on Fleet Street, the day's newspapers lie stacked on a table, ready for delivery at dawn. The ink is still faintly damp, the paper cool to the touch. A single proof sheet rests apart from the others, a headline half finished, a sentence cut off mid-thought. No one will read it tonight. No one will care by morning. But the words were written. The press rolled. The work was done. In the corner, a cat sleeps on a pile of discarded paper, its body rising and falling with each breath, its tail flicking once, then still. A river barge drifts slowly along the Thames, guided not by a hand, but by the tide. The man at the helm leans against the rail, his coat pulled tight, his hat low over his eyes. He does not speak. He does not sing. He watches the water, black and smooth, reflecting nothing. He knows the route by heart. He does not need to steer. He only needs to be there, awake enough to answer if called, present enough to witness the slow passage of the night. The boat moves forward, not fast, not slow, but with the steady rhythm of water against wood, like a heartbeat heard through silence. In a bedroom above a bakery, a child stirs in sleep, turns onto their side, pulls the blanket higher. A hand falls to the floor, then is drawn back under the covers. The room is warm, carrying the faint scent of yesterday's bread. A small wooden horse lies on the nightstand, its paint chipped, its wheels still. No one is watching. No one is listening. But the child is safe. The house is quiet. The world outside moves on, gently, without demand. The city is full of such moments, small, unseen, unrecorded. A sock left drying by the stove. A spoon left in a cup. A window left open just a crack. A chair pulled slightly away from the table, as if someone rose in calm thought. These are not stories. They are not events. They are only traces of presence, of rest, of life continuing in the quietest way. And you, listening now, you are part of this. Your breath is part of the hush. Your stillness is part of the peace. You do not need to stay awake. You do not need to remember. You only need to let go. Like the tide releasing the shore, like smoke dissolving into sky. Like a thought that fades before it is named. The night is long. But you are not alone. You are with the quiet ones. With the unseen. With the ones who simply endure, who simply rest, who simply are. Let your body sink deeper. Let your breath grow slower. Let the story fade into the dark, not with an end, but with a sigh. The stove is out. The city is quiet. You are safe. Sleep now. The city rests now, wrapped in the hush between one breath and the next. The gas lamps burn low, their glow soft in the fog, their light touching wet stone, quiet windows, the still branches of trees. No one walks the streets. No carts roll. No voices rise. The world has turned inward, folded into the deep, slow rhythm of night. You are still here, though your thoughts may have drifted far. Perhaps you remember. The wash house, the steam rising like breath. Perhaps you felt the warmth of a shared kitchen, the quiet of a candle before bed. Perhaps you walked beside Eleanor, not to learn, not to remember, but simply to be with her, in the small hours, and the gentle weight of ordinary life. And now, you do not need to stay. You do not need to listen to the end. You can let go, as the city lets go, as the river lets go, as the sky darkens and holds nothing but stillness. There is no final lesson. No great truth. Only this: you are safe. You are not alone. You are part of the quiet, part of the rest, part of the countless unseen moments that make up the night. If you enjoyed this gentle journey, you are welcome to stay. To like, to subscribe, not because you must, but because you'd like to return here again, when the world feels too loud, when your mind needs to slow, when you simply need to rest. Now, let the darkness around you deepen. Let your breath find its own pace. Let your body sink into the softness beneath you. There is nothing to do. Nowhere else to be. The story has ended. Or perhaps it never began. Perhaps it was only a breath, a pause, a moment of stillness in the long night.